Hey Ron,
Hey, Clayton.
how
What's
are you?
good? And you?
I'm good. We are currently streaming on YouTube. I'm just
Great.
sharing the screen for tonight. We're all set.
All right. And that,
I did put I put together a album on Flickr with all the photos people have submitted, so we can switch to that. I'll send you a link in the chat right now so that you can easily come out here.
I've uploaded them to the place I'm going to use most of them.
Okay, great.
Now, if there may be some that I haven't seen yet, how would I handle this? I'm going to use an editor to look at them. So what I've done is I've loaded them up onto iCloud, and that's where I'm going to edit them. How does would I be able to? I couldn't do anything with Flickr. I don't think. I've got a batch of them. I've got plenty to work with.
If you got enough to work with, let's just work with what you got and not worry about it.
Did other people come in recently with pictures?
There were the three, and then I put some of my own.
Right, I got yours.
Yeah, if you got mine, you got the three people, I think.
Okay, we got plenty then.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the Flickr album. It's like 25 pictures or something. It's not a whole bunch. So.
But I couldn't easily edit them if they're on Flickr.
No, I mean, no, it's not super easy. I think if you want to do some editing and do some live editing, your way is much better.
Yeah. The other question I have is I've got a wonderful lecture series on composition.
Oh, cool.
It was actually done in 2011, and I just wanted, it's the best I've seen. The problem is the URL is that long.
It's ugly.
So I don't know if you can. I've been trying to find out a couple of Google search things for it, and I can't. That'll get it for me.
I can shorten it. If you send me that long, ugly URL, I can create a short URL that we can share with people. And I can also.
All right. So I'll send it to you later, and we'll just say that it'll be. Or do you want me to get it to you now?
Whatever's easy for you. You can do it later if you like. Whatever's easy.
If I send it to you now, what time have we got?
We got another 10 minutes, roughly.
All right, I'll send it to you in an email.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Shall we go ahead? I think we have one person. Oh, let me go ahead and make you a co-host here.
All right, but I'm going to.
You're gonna go offline for a few minutes.
Yeah. Now you've got your screen up now.
I do. Yep.
Okay.
But I can just hang out here. I'm eating a little dinner. So
right, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just going to take myself off.
Okay.
For a couple of minutes.
I'll see you back here at 7 o'clock. Great. Ron. Yep. Good evening. We're still getting gathered, but Ron and I have gotten everything set up. So I just let you in from the waiting room. I'm sure we'll be joined by some more people soon. So get yourself comfortable and we'll be getting started here in a bit. I'm going to actually turn off my video and mute myself, but I'll check in occasionally and we'll start this at about 7 o'clock. See you soon.
Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting here in just a couple of more minutes. We're just all gathering. Just another minute or so and we'll be moving here. Thank you for your patience. It looks like it's 7 o'clock. So because I like to start things promptly when we can, and there's no reason here on the internet why we can't just start. People aren't looking for parking. Why don't I go ahead and get us started? I will turn on the recording here. There we are. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Clayton Cheever. I'm the Assistant Director at the Thomas Crane Public Library in Quincy, Massachusetts. I'm joining you from my home this evening. Hope you're all comfortable in your homes, wherever you are. And you have something comfortable to sit on, something nice to eat, something nice to drink while we go through this great program tonight. This is the fourth in a series. If this is your first time joining us for these series, that's okay. You can go and catch up on the others. We are going to be looking at some submissions from people who've participated in some of the previous ones that were submitted before this evening. So if this is your first time, I'm sorry, there's not a good way to submit your photos here at this late moment, but we have lots of great content for you to look at, and I'll share some links so you can go and look at them later. I also have some extra links that I've been putting into a blog post that is viewable from the front page of the library that has links to several apps that Ron has talked about in the last few courses, and some additional suggestions that came up in the composing of the lists. And there's also links in that blog post to the previous 3 classes themselves, so you can go back and watch them again or share them with friends. Do whatever you'd like to do with them. They're all out there on YouTube for your pleasure. So if you're having any problems with my audio, sometimes that does happen. I'm a little quiet, but people have never had a problem hearing Ron. So if you do have problems, any technical problems of any nature as this program gets rolling, please just let me know. I'll be handing the spotlight to Ron here in a moment and mostly staying in the background here and monitoring questions. The way we do questions in these, if you're new, is that we use the chat feature. So that you can communicate directly with me when Ron has questions for folks. He'll put that out there, and you can just let me know by chat what your questions are, and I will communicate them to Ron. We are live streaming this on YouTube, so if you happen to be watching us there, you can also use the chat feature in YouTube to post questions, and I'll be watching that as well. So there's lots of ways to participate. Let's see, the only other things I wanted to mention, we've got lots of programs happening here at the library all month long. I encourage you to check out our calendar. We had a great program last night on Irish history and culture that had some music, some songs, some dance, some comedy. It was quite a night. There's a recording of that on YouTube if you'd like to go see. There's actually another blog post that even has the slides that were used for that one, so you can find that on our homepage too. Tomorrow night, we've got a first in a 4-part series on music history, looking at popular music in the last several decades, but in different styles or different kind of ways of thinking about popular music. The first is going to be about protest music tomorrow night. We're also going to talk about party music, dance music, and love songs. So those are the 4 sessions for that. It should be a lot of fun. And those are with Professor Delvin Case. who is from Wheaton College most recently, but he's taught at a number of places. And if you haven't ever seen a program with Del before, you owe it to yourself. Whether you're a music lover or just a casual listener, you will hear something new and find something that you just, I suspect, delights you in the way that he approaches music. So there's lots more happening this month. I encourage you to check out our calendar. We've got stuff coming up with the Quincy Historical Society. I've got a great program with another professor looking at policing of Black bodies from slavery through Black Lives Matter. There's a whole bunch of different programs happening this month. So come back often and keep engaging with the library. I'm really glad you're here and able to join us, and we're able to share these programs with you. One of the ways that we're able to share these programs is with the support of the Friends of the Library. The Friends are an awesome organization. When before everything came down in March, they ran our bookstore that was open every Thursday and Saturday, Thursday evenings and Saturdays. We haven't been able to have that open since everything got closed, but they are still supporting these programs and making them happen. So I have great respect for the Friends. I just got a question, which I will address before we pass this over to Ron, which is, will the library open soon? And everybody misses browsing. Yes, and we miss having you browse in the library too. We are working on it. We are first working to make our computers available on appointment only, because we know that we have people who live in the city that don't have regular internet or computer access. So our first priority is trying to reach out to those most in need, as we obviously are benefiting from our own computer access tonight. But we are working on plans. I've spent a lot of time talking to people who do actually specialize in occupancy monitoring. So when we have different occupancy levels that are approved by, we're working with people from the state level to the health department and many different levels in governments to make sure we're doing what's going to keep you safe, what's going to keep our staff safe. So I've been talking to a lot of folks, and hopefully we're going to have some innovative solutions there so that we can welcome people back in. When people first come back in for those computer sessions, we're actually going to have the stacks closed. It's sad. So we are addressed. I've been asked to say where we are. We are at 40 Washington Street in Quincy Center. So in Quincy, Mass, if you aren't familiar with Quincy, Mass, we are just south of Boston, or we could say that Boston is just north of us. We have 27 miles of coastline. It's a fabulous city, proud community of, I suspect the census will hold us at 100,000 people. I could talk for a long time about Quincy, but that's not why we're here. Come back to one of our historical society or catch me at another point, and I'll talk about it for a long time. There's also been a request for my email address if you have any questions or you want to follow up afterwards, and I'll put that in the chat. It's ccheever@ocln.org, but I don't expect you to catch that as I rattle it off so quick. So if you'd like my email address, I'll put that in the chat. So without further ado, I've given thanks to the Friends. I've plugged some future programs. I will be happy to answer. There's some additional questions that come in, but I want to get this program started, so I'll address them in the chat personally with folks. I'm going to hand the spotlight to Ron. Thank you. Good evening, Ron. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi again. What I want to do tonight, I want to first show you one of the best programs I've seen, and on composition. And excuse me for 1 minute. Okay, I've got it. And it was put online. It's a lecture in 2011, and the URL is very long, and I'm not going to go through it all with you, but I think it's invaluable as you go along and want to find out what makes a good photograph. And Clayton will have the URL or a way for you to get it after I show this. And I'm just going to take you here. And let's see, I've got to go to the screen, share screen, and there it is. And can you see that now? I'm never sure.
I think you need, Ron, I think you need to hit one more button because we're only seeing you still.
Okay. Let's see. There's me. Let's see, share screen. I see it. Okay.
That was the ticket. You got it.
Great. And here we go. And this is a very, very detailed 70 pages of some of the best lecture I've seen on what makes a good picture. And I just want to go through this for the next couple of minutes and show you what's in that and how you can use this in the future. All of the rules we've talked about, there's lots and lots of examples. There are more examples of leading lines, textures, and what's very, very good as you go along is there are many, many examples and how you can take good pictures and what makes a bad picture. I shouldn't say bad, because tonight we'll be looking at some photographs and seeing if we can make them into what is a good photograph and what is, how shall we put it, a memory shot. And as you go through this, you'll find that the images that are there, and you can take your time, and it's one of the best texts I've ever seen on composition. This was done in 2011. So a lot of the links that are shown here aren't going to be good. Just be aware of that. And the URL, which is much too long for me to read to you, will be, Clayton will have that on the website.
I've already put it in the chat, and I'll put it on the blog post where we've been sharing things, but it's already in the chat. It's the bit.ly PCPL Great Photo Creation RG 2020-08. So
very good. All right, then this is all I wanted to do, but it'll go through and show you what makes a much better photograph. And it's a course in itself, and it's a very good one. Okay, let's get out of this and bring me back. Very good. I also what I'm going to do tonight, and I think it's the best way to do this, is I want to take some of the photographs that you've sent in and try to see if we can determine and do a critique of them. But mostly what I want to do is introduce you to, people have asked, what I think is the best app and editing application that you can start to use. And it's by Apple, and it's called Photo. And it's free, and you can download it onto your Mac, onto your Adobe, onto your Microsoft machine. In other words, it can be used on almost any computer system. It's free. And the reason I'm going to use that tonight is because I want to take you through the adjustments, which are generic. In other words, what is brightness? How does that affect the photograph? How do you handle the cropping? And I want to use this particular application, not only because it's free, but you can take whatever you learn from this and apply that if you ever do end up getting Photoshop. It's a very, very basic but very powerful program, and that's what I'm going to be using. I also want to talk a little bit tonight, and I hope that questions come in, on where do you store your photographs if you want to on the web, and how do you publish a book, or how do you get a book printed? And what I'll go through is some of the list of some of the companies that print photo books, and you can make your decision from there, but I'll give you the names of quite a few of them. So before I start, are there any questions that came over, Clayton, from last week or that people have now? In the chat.
Right now, I'm working on getting the link up on YouTube.
Okay.
Well, I've got the link in the chat, but I'm making sure that it's on YouTube too. There haven't been any questions yet about what you've been sharing. I just want to make sure.
Okay, good.
Sure, but
there's a couple of things that I want to talk about
look at that program,
that I can't necessarily, that you can't necessarily do. First of all, After you take the picture on your camera, on your phone, what happens to it? Those of you who have Apple phones, what happens to it is that in most cases, it gets sent up into the cloud, into iCloud. If you're not sure how to get it up there or how to set it up, I'll show it to you. And again, let me ask now, because I don't want to leave out people who don't have iPhones. Is there any way of us finding out how many people don't have iPhones? It's probably the same process. Okay.
I can do a poll really quick and we can see what kind of phones
Yeah,
people
yeah,
have. So
yeah.
let me throw up a poll real quick.
But what you should all know, and this happens no matter what, that when you take a picture with your iPhone, with your smart, okay, I'll let you do that there. Let's see. So what have we got here? All right. Mostly Apple, but there are some people with Android phones. And what I'm going to show is probably relative also to your Android. And the program I'm going to use, Photos, which is by Apple, is free, and I'm almost certain that you can download it and use it on your own phone. The other thing that you should be aware of is that if you store your pictures, which will almost invariably happen, they'll be out on the web. They'll be out in a cloud. There are 3 or 4 programs that give you an enormous amount of storage for nothing. Apple is one. It's called iCloud. iCloud will give you probably up to about 5 gigabytes free. And for 99 cents a month, you can get an additional 30, 40 gigabytes, huge amounts. So it'll cost you $12 a year to have an almost unlimited space in the cloud. It will also allow you to store everything that you want from your main computer and everything that you already have on your iPhone, on your smartphones. Microsoft also has a free cloud, cloud, and there are several others that are also free. In other words, you shouldn't have to pay for storage. Google gives you a huge amount also. And if you use Google's programs, you'll probably find that it's already starting to store some of your, if you use their calendar, you're going to find that most of your mail and if you use Gmail, it's all stored out there on the cloud. One of the problems is if you don't want other people to eventually see it in 10 years, there is a way that you can get to Google and they will expunge everything. They'll erase everything. But what we're finding is that companies that thought, or people who thought that their email was gone, they're finding out that it isn't. So you should be aware. From what I can tell, iCloud and Apple are very, very secure. When you go out, I'm going to show you some of the things that we should be using. Once you have the picture, you have a choice of using that photograph to upload or to send to other people. And there are so many different social, there's WhatsApp, there's FaceTime. There must be 5 or 6, and I'm sure most of you are using these. And each of them has an interface that will allow them to go to your camera, to go to where the pictures are, and to upload them. There's usually no problem with that because the program itself, as it uploads, for example, to FaceTime or WhatsApp, it will make the picture fit the screen when it goes to somebody else's phone or their computer. The problem can come when you try to send a photograph by email. And the problem is, depending upon what kind of a smartphone you have, the files can get very, very big. If you ever start to use RAW, they're going to be huge. And what happens is a lot of email programs will block it. I don't know if you've ever found this, if you've ever tried to send 5, 6, 7 fairly large, when I say large files, it's going to get blocked. They're getting better and better at letting them through, but you should be aware of that. If you're having that problem, you've got to go to the editor probably on your main computer and make the files smaller. I can't go into that here now and show you how to do that, but that's the kind of a thing. Just be aware of it when you send it. Are there any questions now on any of those issues?
There are a couple of questions, Ron.
Okay.
Some folks, so we had a couple of people on just chiming in on YouTube. We've got a couple of iPhone users and an Android user there, so it's pretty similar to the crowd here. There's some concern about security, about people seeing your images if you're sharing them online, and if you'd like to address that a little bit.
Yeah. How shall I put it? It is, the sites themselves are secure, but somebody just hacked into Obama's one of his programs, so nothing is totally secure. At this point, very seriously, I wouldn't send anything in an email or anything in a photograph that you wouldn't want everybody in the world to see. It's the only way I can put it. Because people can find emails years later. They can hack in, this is happening every day, excuse me. The cities are being taken over by hackers and they've lost all of their data. I would tell you to be very careful. As far as what people can see, I don't know how many of you use what's known as share. And that's when you've got children and you want to see grandchildren, and every time they take a picture on their smartphone, it comes to your phone and you see it. You don't know who else they're sharing with, and they may not have the sophistication to tell other people that they're sharing with to make their own site secure. So I found actually that very often I'm seeing pictures from somebody I don't even know. So that's the problem with sharing. Once you send a picture to somebody by email, once you send it to them, I'd be very careful. That's the only way I can put it, because almost anything right now can be hacked. So you say then, okay, I'm not going to send anything up into the cloud. I'm going to store everything on my computer. I'm going to close everything down. You're not going to be able to do much of anything. That's just the fact. I read an article 2 days ago by someone who decided, okay, I'm not going to go on Facebook. I'm going to get rid of Google. I'm going to get rid of this. And she found that she was totally isolated. She couldn't do anything. And this was a professional writing in the Wall Street Journal who tried this. She took all of her browsers down. She took all of her storage down and found that she couldn't do a thing, because almost everything now is up in the cloud. Almost all the programs that you're running, whether you realize it or not, are up in the cloud. Any other questions there?
So I would echo, and we definitely think a lot about security at the library too, Ron. So I appreciate you addressing that. And you're right. Yeah. I wouldn't share anything that, honestly, I wouldn't be okay seeing in the paper or in court, because that's how public our lives are anymore. Chances are people aren't going to see it. There's so much volume out there, so it depends on where you're sharing it. There are sites like Flickr that we use in the library that gives you the ability to say what kind of licensing you associate with it, that say that they'll make it so that people can't download it. But I'll tell you, anything I can see on my screen, I know how to capture and have my own copy of it. It's very, you use screenshots and it's really easy to grab anything you can see. It may not be the highest resolution, but anything that's out there, if it's viewable on public screen, somebody can see it. So being wary and learning whatever tool you use, understanding its security parameters. One of the best ways to do it is to, be cognizant of your universe and make sure that you are only posting on sites and in communities where you're comfortable posting, and your comfort levels may expand, they may contract. It's better to start with, like, if you are sharing them with Google Photo, that is something where, unless you are, have been given explicit permission in Google, people aren't going to bump into it, because Google, unless somebody's trying to hack. Of course, there's like, my take on that has always been the NSA, the people who really want to have access, who I may actually really, with their
Or a
not worried about
17-year-old
anything.
kid.
Right. But like, anybody who really wants to get into it is going to figure a way in. It's just like, so much of our security it's theater. It's a convention of a glass, pane on a front door that we all agree I'm not going to break so that I can unlock your deadbolt. We all agree that's true. But anybody who wants to break the glass, it doesn't have those ethics, is going to break the glass and walk in my house. So it's, when you get deep into security, it can be unsettling. We had to figure out what we're comfortable living with.
I think what I'll do right now, and take 5 minutes or so, is just show you how the cloud works a little bit, and also what to be careful of, and not to make you paranoid. But whatever you do, there's a chip in your car, and anybody who wants to be able to, you don't even know it's there. They know where your car is all the time. I found sometimes that cameras, even if you turn them off, and I'm sure that your iPhone, your smartphones can probably be traced almost any time. And as you know, if you've set it up to find a friend at any other time, you can find them on a map, on a Google map, no matter where they are in the world. So just be aware of that. And I don't, it's not to be paranoid, but it's just to be fairly careful with what you do post. What I'm going to do now is take you, let's see if I can come back here to the screen. 1 minute. There we go. All right, I'm going to come back to the share screen here, and we're going to go here, and I want to know now, you can see the screen as I shifted it, right?
You see your screen, exactly.
Okay. This is the Photos program. And what it's done is it stores all of your pictures that you take. The minute that you take a picture on your smartphone, it will go up into the iCloud, into iPhoto. And then what you do is you use the program called Photos, and you can see it in the top left here. Those of you who already have iPhones have Photos built in. Those of you who have Android desktops, you can download, you can get Photos. It's free. It's not as sophisticated as Photoshop, but it's $700 less. And I'm going to show you tonight, which I think is the most important thing we can do, is not only what's a good photograph and how we edit it, but the generic terms that are used as you go in and edit a photograph. So what we'll start with here is we'll take some of these photographs were sent up by some of you and some of the others, and some of them came out of other classes. And we'll see if we can take the photograph and do somewhat of a critique and see what you can actually do with the picture. Here's one here that I thought would be a good example. This is a picture that was taken with your phone at night, and it's extraordinary. And it's amazing how much you can do with the smartphone in almost no light. Now, when you get a picture, I'm going to go up here, and up at the top is Edit, and next to it you'll see a little wand, and it says Auto Enhance. You're seeing my screen now. Almost every editing program has that. It's the first thing that you should try. Some of the programs say auto, but what it does is it looks at the picture and sees if it can automatically enhance it. All it does here is make it a little bit brighter. When you go to the edit, what you're seeing on the right-hand side of this screen are the controls that you're going to have from here on in with any program you use that's going to allow you to enhance, to fix, to make the photograph, quote, from very often what's a snapshot into a photograph that, would you print it and put it on a wall? Would you enlarge it? And we'll also talk about where you go to get them enlarged. So some of the controls that you can use, and I can't describe exactly what the difference is between brilliance and exposure. But what brilliance does is take the middle grayer areas and make them brighter or darker. Exposure is overall. What you got to remember is that the term exposure increases the exposure for all of the values in the picture. So if I go like this, it's increasing the brightness, if you will, or the exposure overall. If I use brilliance, it's going to try to take the middle values and bring out, very often in the darker areas, some of the detail that you couldn't see. Now, in this picture, which is very good, what could we do to perhaps make it, if you can say that, any better? What happens if we take the middle values down? Does it make it more dramatic? Then you have highlights. Highlights affect the brightest areas of your photograph. And what you've got to do is take your picture and fiddle around with these and see if you like it any better. We'll talk about that. In the shadows, that works in the shadows. Brightness, again, mostly in the middle areas. Contrast increases the difference between light and dark. That makes the photograph much more dramatic. The picture right now does have a as the road leads your eye to the most dramatic part of the picture, which is the blue on the bridge. What you can also do is, if you want to, is once you start to crop, to take some of the areas that, let's just see where this is here. I wonder if I can get, there we go. And take your crop tool. The way the crop tool works is you can start from a corner and it keeps exactly the same proportions as the original picture. If you don't want to do that, you can crop from the sides and make it wider, or you can make it smaller. But if you start down here like that, it'll keep the proportions. Then what you can do is you can move the cropping around to see what makes the best crop in a picture. We'll do that with other photographs. But there is one other thing here that I wanted to show you that, let's go back here. When you take a picture at night, you'll notice that you're getting what we call noise or grain. That's why I picked this picture. And the reason for that is that there isn't enough light to really give you the definition. And the same thing happens with film. As you increase the sensitivity, you've got to increase the little pieces that respond to the light. And you're going to get this kind of a thing you see there in the blue, which is called noise. And the way to help get rid of that is that very often there'll be a noise reduction filter. And what it does is, if you could see that, it's smoothing out the area of that noise. And I'll show you that when you take a picture of a person and their face is in the shade or it's dark, And you'll notice that their skin is very mottled. Very often that's from noise. And what you want to do is be able to get rid of it. And that's what noise reduction is. Sharpening is something that you've got to be careful of, because sharpening, what it does is it actually takes the edges and makes them more prominent. You can't really take a picture that's out of focus and make it focus. You can't do that. But when you sharpen, your eye will see the areas on the edges, and I'll show you this with other pictures, and you can see now that it looks sharper, and it will sharpen the edges, and we'll go over that. Now, let's go and get here some of the other photos and take some of the pictures that came in and see how we can perhaps, now let's just take this one here. That's a snapshot. That's a memory. I'm not saying it's a terrible photograph, but that's what you do for most of the pictures that you take, and you end up with pictures like this. What's this? What are we looking at? Are we looking at the dog's face? Actually, not a bad photograph, because the guy is behind him, and it makes it look as if the dog's dreaming of somebody. He's coming out of his head. There's not too much you can do with this. What you could do, let's just try this. You could take this, you could go up to the crop, and you could try to crop the picture this way. Let's see if we can, there we go. This is not working. There we go. And crop it like that, and crop it like this. And then you've got something there. Now, that's a little bit more dramatic. It shows somebody on the beach. He's still in good focus, and his dog's in the foreground. And the first thing that you should usually do when you have a photograph is fool around, is go to the crop tool. Take out all of the parts of the photograph that don't add anything to the idea. The idea of this is somebody on the beach with their dog. And the dog's not the focus here. The dog's out of focus, and it's a pretty good picture of your friend or somebody on the beach. What else you can do here is, once you go and get out of the edit mode, you could go in and take, for example, what we were working with, the highlights, and by bringing down, you're bringing out the blue here and taking out, there we are, bringing that up there, the brilliance, and fooling with this until you can get some very, very dramatic sky. And what it also does is darken the skin of the person so that that person is no longer the center of your focus, the center of your attention. And this is the way sometimes to take a picture that doesn't do that much and make it into something more. Another snapshot. This is a memory shot. There's not much that you can do here. One of the problems is when you take a photograph outdoors and you get a sky without clouds, get rid of as much sky as you can. Bring it down so that what you see here is not the sky. And again, before you do anything else, you can go in and start to crop it. And now we've got a fence there. The fence is pretty good. That leads us in. It tells you a little bit there. And you come up a little bit more like this. And you're starting to get a photograph that tells you a little bit more about where you are without having as much of a distraction as you had. And just keep cropping, and you'll eventually come up with something that gives you more than just a snapshot that you started with. But again, until you learn how to combine skies, when you get good at this, you'll collect skies. You collect a whole bunch of pictures of skies, and what you can do is superimpose those skies onto this, and it's very easy to do. And I told you about an app from from Adobe. I think it was called Mix. It was in the list I gave you last week. Just like that, it's going to allow you to take something like this, get a better sky, and put it right in. So let's go back here and see with another photograph that may work a little bit better. Here's what I wanted to show you. This works well. This works well, first of all, because there's a sense of design. You have the petals going in one direction. It's in focus almost from beginning to end. The problem you're going to have with your smartphone is you can't always control the focus. If you get too close, the depth of field, which means what's in focus, is going to be more and more shallow. That's just a rule of the way the lenses work. If you pull back a little bit, you're going to have a much wider range of what's in focus. And if you're in good light, what's going to happen is the lens is going to stop down automatically, which gives you an even greater depth of field. What does this mean? If you're going to take pictures of flowers, it's not always good to have bright sunlight, but if there's not much light, pull back again before you get this close. This works well. And what you've seen is what's happening here in the background is because of the narrow depth of field, it's blurred. So it makes the flower stand out. And that's one of the things that allows you to turn a picture into a photograph. Do you want to play around with it? Let's just see what happens automatically if it gets improved with the, the computer is very, very happy the way that it is right now. And you can see that you can move the brilliance and see if what this does. Now, if I take this here, do you see what it's doing? It's actually bringing the background into even less of a distraction because it's making it much darker. So that gives you a little bit more or less distraction. You don't need those green leaves behind it. You can see there that there's that green leaf, and you can get rid of that with the brilliance without affecting overall exposure. Remember, exposure affects the entire image. Highlights, if we bring down the highlights, those are the brightest parts, look at the color and look at the detail that you're picking up all of a sudden in that flower. That may be what you want. It's much more dramatic. And so you can do that. The shadows, if we want to get rid of the distraction in the background, you can drop the shadows down. The brightness and the brilliance, you have to just play with and see the difference in the middle areas themselves. And again, contrast gives you a higher difference between the light and the dark. One of the things that you may or may not want to, I'm not going to do that, play with, and I'm just going to mention this once, and I've been at this for years, and I still haven't mastered curves. You're going to see curves in any editing that you're going to do from here on in. What it allows you to do is to pick out a color or light value in the photograph itself. In other words, if I go here and I want to just adjust this area, this color there, it puts a point on that line. And by bringing the line up I increase the exposure only where that point is,
Hey
and then
Liz,
I
it's
can bring it
Elizabeth
down.
checking in, seeing and hoping that you had a better day today than you did a couple of days ago.
Uh-oh.
And
Seems
yeah,
like we got
just
this- we
checking
got
in.
us muted. We
Bye-bye.
gotta fix this.
Was that you or me?
I think somehow somebody else was able to unmute, so I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to change a setting, and you may get
Yeah.
muted here in just a second, Ron. I apologize.
Okay.
So, Ron, now we need you to unmute. I just muted everybody, and included yourself. Sorry about that. You're still muted. We still can't hear you, Ron.
Mute my audio.
There
All
you
right.
go. You're good.
Okay.
You're back.
So this is what curves. This is the most powerful tool that you will eventually learn to use. And again, it allows you to go into very, very specific areas of your picture and adjust the brightness and adjust the colors. You can adjust almost anything in very, very small areas. If I went in here and I wanted to pick this up here, it's going to put a point almost at the brightest spot, and again allow you to adjust that. I'm not going to spend much more time on it. It's called curves, and it's in every program now. So let us go to another one.
Ron, there's a couple of questions. This may be a key time
Yep.
to ask them.
Please.
One was, how do you undo a change without undoing everything that you've changed?
There's always, I'll show you right now, there's almost every program you get is either going to save the original picture, or before you get off, it's going to warn you. Almost every one of these applications will do that. And most of them just save the original also, and you rename it and give it a different name so that it doesn't overwrite it. Now,
I think the question was more, if you've made a bunch of changes and you decide you want to undo one, can you undo just that change and not all the other changes?
Yes, because I don't think this very basic program has that. I haven't really mastered it. It's called history. And a lot of the applications and a lot of the professional, the better editing programs will have a function called history, and every change you make is there, and you can go back and look at any point in that change. If it doesn't, usually, all right, we'll try it. I'll try it here. Now, I wanted to show you this photograph here. This is the same kind of flower, and it doesn't work that well. And it doesn't work that well because look at the distracting background. And the background is distracting. You say, well, what can I do about it? Not much. We can do something with it when we edit it, but I wanted you to notice what makes a better photograph is because you were close enough to have a shallow depth of field in the first picture of the flower that you could just make it out. This is a snapshot almost. Can you do much with it? I'm not sure. Let's just see if you can edit it at all and get rid of some of the background. I doubt it. Not too easily, not really. And the only way to do this is to either move that. Oh, the other thing that'll make all your pictures much better are your feet. Move. In other words, take your camera and move around. You don't have to have this behind that flower. You could have come to the side of this, and I'll show you something with that. How just by moving, you can take a photograph. And
Ron, while you look for another photograph,
Yeah.
another question that came up is when you're cropping, there's some concern about how do you have an image at the end that will fit like a 4x6 frame, or I always find I'm looking for frames. Like, how do I use these kind of custom, or without going to a custom frame shop, how do I use these like standard frame, frame sizes? How do you do that when you're cropping? Do you have any
Well, I
tips?
might as well talk about it now. Almost all editing programs have the image. Let's try it here. And it's an image size. And you can go in there and change the size. Let's just try that. I wanted to show you another example of how getting close makes for a much more dramatic photograph. Now this one's up very, very close. I can't imagine it was taken with who's ever out there whose picture this is. I didn't realize you could get this close with a smartphone. But I think that some of the bigger, I call them the bigger iPhones, you can do that. And incidentally, this is an aside. I read another review today. You don't need to spend $1,100 or $1,000 for an iPhone. There are quite a few very good Samsung, LGs out there for about $300 that even have a couple of lenses. And they'll do very, very good work. So here's an example again of getting very, very close. Now let's take this here and get out of that and take a photograph. Let's see. Let's see what, here's one. Okay. You take the picture, there's not that much that you can do with it when you take it. It's dramatic. It's somehow dramatic. It's in there. Again, this was taken in low light. Well, if you go in and you do the automatic, and it automatically, this is this little thing up here. That just the computer says, what can I do to make this a little bit better? And you can see the clouds are very much more defined. You can see much more detail in them, and it's lightened up the rest of the photograph. You get rid of it and it's all dark. So it automatically brought detail there in the trees. Now, when you go in to edit, your first thing is always, I'd say this almost always, go to crop. You don't need the car down there. You don't need that. And you want to be able to keep perhaps some of this. Now, the problem is that you want to get that crop. It's hard to do here. Let me just see if we can get that. Now, you want to straighten it out. This is a straighten tool here. So the next thing you can do is this. Now, you want to keep the fountain in because the fountain is useful. So you're not going to be able to keep the whole fountain in because by straightening it out, you're going to lose some of the area of the picture in order to straighten it. It's still pretty effective. Then when you go to edit this and you edit the photograph, you start to use your exposure a little bit, and that brings out the clouds. You can go to your brilliance, and that doesn't affect it very much. And the shadow areas is where you want to bring out that green maybe, and look what it does all of a sudden. Just by using these different controls, you can bring out, it's going to be difficult to do much with this photograph because there's so much detail. The cars don't work in there, and you can't get the whole fountain in. But look what it does with the shadow areas. And that's really important because it allows you to take a picture that doesn't have much of anything and actually bring out detail where it wasn't before. Now, let's go here because this one, I wanted to show you something here.
Ron, I don't think we addressed size still. I think we got a little distracted there, or at least maybe I missed it.
No, I forgot it. but
Okay.
but I thought of it again.
Okay, great.
So let's see if we could go in and see if we can edit this and if this program allows us to do this, okay? So up here is where all your other commands are, image. So what can we do? What can we do? I don't think that this program allows us to change the size of the image. So what you're going to have to do eventually is when you go to print the picture, it's going to give you an option on the right side. Now, every program isn't going to do this. This is how this Photos program, there's usually a way of doing it. So what you want to do is your command line is always up here on the top. Whenever you, now I'm working here on a desktop. Your command line up at the top gives you controls that you don't necessarily have within the editor. Just remember, go to the top. And what we're doing now is we're using Photos, and that's what it'll say up there. It's the same on a Microsoft or an Android. And what we can do is make it fit a particular size. So US letter is what, 8.5 by, what is you, 8.5 by 11?
8.5 by 11, yep.
Okay, so right now I'm using a 8.5 by 11, which is what an enlargement will be, usually if you want to make an enlargement. And you've got an 8.5 by 11, and you tell it to fit. If you want to make a 5 by 7, you click that, and that's how you get to print it for 5 by 7. Now, what do you do once you've got that? Then you got to get, either you're going to print it yourself, or you're going to send it to somebody. Let me give you a little clue on that. CVS, Walgreens, try them. They do extraordinary work. It's all done now by computer. People are not doing it by hand. They're all using the same papers, and you will be very surprised at how good your prints are. They'll charge you 55 cents for a 5 by 7, and I think you can get an 8 by 10 for as little as $1.50 to $2 at the most. This is the way you do it. In this case, there's an 8 by 10, 4 by 6, 5 by 7, or you can do a custom, and see down in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, it allows you to take and do a custom size in different proportions. You can do a square one like that. That's your aspect ratio. You can do a longer one like that, 4 by 3 and 5 by 4. So you have the choice, and then you can make it as big as you want. You want to make it 10 by that, and that's how you control your size. Okay? Now that's only for this. With a more sophisticated program, you're going to be able to not only control the size, but how many pixels, how many little dots are going to be in your final photograph. And the more dots, the better the photograph will look. You won't have as much grain. You'll learn that. But for this, for the intents and purposes of this question, there's quite a bit of control for a free program. All right? If there's any follow-up on that, let me know. So you can change the aspect ratio. You can go to letter size, and you can do all of these sizes here. Here's the 8.5 by 11, and it'll fit it. There it is. And it will fill it. And if you wanted to, you could go to a legal size piece of paper. There's that. You want it to fit it, it'll fit it. So these controls are all here, long, 8.5 by 13, and untitled 1. I think what you do is you make your own custom, as we had down here on the bottom, and then it allows you to save it and give it a title. So you can use it over again if you want to make that enlargement. Okay. There's the answer to that. Let's go back here, undo the edit. And that's also here before it's saved where you can do this and undo it. Now, can I get back? Yes. And we go in here and edit this. What I want you to see here is a very dramatic photograph. And we may be able to crop some of that out when you get a sky like that. When you take a picture in low light, if you want to make this 8 by 10 or larger, you're going to get artifacts that's called in there. And if you look closely at this, the edges are very, very sharp. It doesn't look exactly the way that you would have expected it to look. And you can again use the brilliance, the highlights, if you want to bring down. The beauty of the highlights is it will almost always darken the sky. And by darkening the sky, you bring out more of the definition in these clouds. Again, do you want the boats to be, is that what you want to see? You'll bring up your shadows. You can bring up your brightness and you'll be able to see more of the shadows. You can change where the dark is and drop that down, bring up some of the brilliance, and now it's a little bit more dramatic because the clouds are what you see, and the boats, which are really distracting, are sort of darker now, and allows the city of Boston behind there to stand out a little bit. Again, if there's nothing else we do tonight, is knowing that you have these controls to be able to use from almost any application that you're going to have.
So Ron, at the top of this, you said that this is photos and this is the native Apple app. I believe you said that this was available for Windows machines as well.
Yeah, I checked it out earlier today, and I'm almost sure most of Apple's programs now will run on almost any machine, and they give it away.
Okay, I did a little searching and didn't find it, so maybe we can do a little research afterwards. And if somebody wants to give me their email.
The only reason I'm saying photos, but I'm using this as a generic. If you've got an Android phone, LG will supply you with a photo editor. And if you have the photo editor on your phone, you can go to LG and download the editor for your desktop. And they'll look pretty much like this. That's why I'm using this. I'm not saying this is the best thing. It's free and it's very easy to see the adjustments. That's what I'm trying to do. And these adjustments are generic. Every program has these. All right. There's another thing called filters, and that will allow you, again, to change the aspect by putting different filters over. It's very nice for making a black and white print. Actually, this here is a black and white is almost more dramatic than the color. Fool around with that. You're always going to have the option of turning it into a black and white. For example, if you want to take a photograph that's, let's just take this one here, which is very dramatic. And what we can do immediately is to crop it, take out what we really don't want here, which is this is very tricky, is take out the cars and bring in some of this, and then with the rule of thirds, there you go. Now she's on the thirds. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Now we'll go in and edit it and see what happens when we go into the adjustments and try to bring out a little bit more of the facial features. There we go. Now you can just about see the glint in her eye. And let's see if we can bring down the sky. So the sky is light, so we would go to highlights and darken the sky. Her face is still there, and bring out a little bit more of the shadows, and you're starting to get a much more dramatic picture. Now, you may want to go to this now and even crop it a little bit more to come in on her. But what you've done now is taken this and made it into something that she becomes the focus, but not all of it. But you can just see in her eye. I wonder if we can go in there with the curves and try to get just this portion here, and then take that and bring it up. Look at that. You see what I just did? What I did was I picked out with my pointer, this is in curves, and I got it right here on the face, and there's just enough detail that we could bring out the whites of her eyes. And then from there, you can even go, I won't start retouching, but you can retouch this. And now let's just try a black and white. Look at that. I don't know, is that more dramatic, or you want to try this? Look at that. Let's just try 1 minute. I like that. Now you've got an entirely different photograph. It's no longer just a snapshot. Not that it was at the beginning, but you've taken what you had and being able to really control the ultimate result that you want. And if you go back now and you crop this a little bit, let's see if we want that light over there. That might do something. And then crop it a little bit like that, and a little bit like that. And then if you move her back to there, and then now that we've got something very different. And see what we've gone, in 5 minutes or so, what you can do from the beginning to the end with a generic, I call it a generic editor. And then we go back to photos. Again, you can take something that what's interesting here, what is the focus here? It's actually those silhouettes. So if you go in there and you take just the silhouettes and you crop that down, let's just see what happens if you do that, and we get rid of some of the foreground, and the sky is actually pretty good. So if you want to go in now and take the sky and bring down that a little bit, it gives you a little bit better in the sky. Highlights, get rid of some of the highlights. And now you're starting to see, look what we've done with the sky, and now we've made silhouettes of the people. So now what you've got is a picture where you are actually looking, not at you don't care what they look like, but the silhouettes show you the action that these people are doing, all these different things in the water. The sky is more interesting, and you can probably get down here and get some more of the darker or lighter areas until it becomes more of a silhouette. I'm not saying this is making it the perfect pictures, but you can see what the options are that you have. Questions?
There was one question, if you could go over the rule of thirds again, please.
Yeah. I want to show you the difference. Now I'll show you the difference between a snapshot and a photograph in one easy lesson. Here is a snapshot. Okay? The dog's important, but what do you want to see? Do you want to see the dog? Do you want to see the people behind? It's a snapshot. It shows you the dogs there with these people. If, on the other hand, after the person who took this went and moved a little bit, look what we've got now. Now it's the figures, not necessarily the faces. And again, if you go in there and you start from the beginning and you start to crop. Now, someone asked, what's the rule of thirds? There's the rule of thirds. It shows you that the picture is divided up into thirds. And for some reason or other, that if you place the image, the part of the photograph that you want to be your mind, your brain to focus on, you put it at one of the intersecting lines. So I would bring it in a little bit further like that. I would crop it like that. And then when you're cropping over here, you can take this drives me nuts, there we go. And see if you can get that guy on the side. And then most of the people are here. And now you've got a very dramatic picture. And when you go in and adjust the light, so maybe we can get a silhouette, bring down, or if you want to bring out, there we go. Now, if you want the shadows to come out, or if you want to make it very dramatic and darken the shadows and increase the contrast, you can see what you can do. This is a much more dramatic thing. And all you do is get rid of the dog and just take your camera and move it around. That's usually the best kind of thing that you can do. Does that answer the question of the rule of thirds? Hopefully.
If they don't get it, they can certainly ask a follow-up. So
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to show you is experiment with this. This picture came in. This, remember I said, use light from a window. Using light when you go for a portrait, if you use the light from the window, you're going to get much better definition than either with artificial light. And for both of these, and this one now demands cropping. And I'm going to show you something else. So you want to get rid of that. You want to leave him there and maybe bring him like this. And now the question is, what's that thing in the background? Okay, that doesn't add anything and it's very distracting. And you say, well, I couldn't get rid of it. It's a marvelous photograph, but how do you get rid of that? In almost every program that you buy, every application, editing program, is going to allow you to take a portion of the photograph and then paste over this so you can get rid of this stuff. Let's just see if this program allows us to do it. Retouch, that's what it'll be called. Retouch. Let's see. I don't know. I haven't had enough practice with this to see if that will do it. No. Retouch. Oh, I can. Yeah. Look at this. My gosh. Look what we just did. All right. You're going to have, if this program has this, every program you get, every application editing you have is going to do that. So you can even go into your picture now after you've taken it, after you've corrected it, and go in and get rid of distracting detail. Now it's a good photograph. That's a printable photograph. And you could change the proportions even a little bit better. You may want to, for example, go in and, oh, incidentally, there's always the red eye. You can always get rid of red eye. You could go in here to the shadows a little bit and bring out the other eye, or you could darken the shadows. But if you can just go up a little bit and then darken it that way, you've really got a good picture. I wonder what it would look like in black and white. Actually, that's not bad. You have these choices, and that's the black and white. Now, someone asked me, can you undo it? See this up here on the top left? Those are where your commands are. And the command is undo, and it'll keep undo, change, and it'll keep going through and undoing all of them until you can get back to the original. And there must be a way of getting back right away, but it allows you to keep stepping back from every one of your edits. I'm sure there's a way of bringing it right back to the beginning like that. And how did I do that? In the bottom right, there's a little bar that says reset adjustments. So the answer is yes. And the more you get used to these and the more you do this, you're going to see all of the different kinds of adjustments that you can make. See this here? It says revert to original. There's a command right up there. And you can duplicate it. And here are now the other thing that you can do. And I want to mention this in the last 15 minutes or so, just to give you an idea. Once you've got your photograph, and you want to be able to either make an album, or you want to get it printed, or you want to do one of those, you've all seen, I'm sure, people send you out, little small books of pictures, 5 by 7, 8 by 10, and they make a little album out of it. I'm going to give you the names of the places that do it, give you a rough idea of what it costs. And these are, if you wanted to do an album, it will allow you to do that, but I'm not going to go into that right now. So there's another kind of adjustment that you can do. And was there anything else? Again, it's a very nice photograph of that monarch butterfly, but all of the detail around it is very, very distracting. Can you do anything with it? Well, the first thing you can do immediately is to go in and get rid of everything in there. Bring it up from here so that the proportions are the same. I'm having trouble with this. There we go. Use your rule of thirds, put it there like that, and bring in this here, and bring in this here. And you've already gone pretty far to be able to get rid of a lot of the distraction in there. It's already a little bit better. And then you could probably go in there and edit enough so that you can throw the background out. You see that? All of a sudden, it's becoming less distracting. I could go back and crop that and continue to get rid of all that other back there and increase the brightness of, now look what we've done, what we've started to do. So now what you've done is the good photograph gives you, your eye can be drawn immediately to what you think is important. And obviously it's the butterfly. And then you could continue now and crop out even more of this down here like that, and bring some of this in from the side. And what you've got is a much And from what we started with, there you go. It's a much better, much more effective photograph. All right, questions before we get to the next series here. And I think I've shown you most of the ways. I want to show you one other example. This is a nicely composed photograph, but it's flat. There's not much difference when you take a picture of a large landscape in the values of the colors or in the values of the light. But what you can do is to, when you go in and start with your editing again, you can bring out different portions of the photograph so that, let's see, bring down the highlights and get the clouds. Now look what's starting to happen. The clouds are more defined. All of a sudden, the houses stand out because there's more light on them. And it gives you a much, much more dramatic, I'm not going to go and crop it. I would probably leave the water there because that's another value. But the hills are not what you want people to see. What you want people to see essentially is this beautiful little town and the buildings that are there and the sun falling on them. And these are the kinds, again, of adjustment that you can take from a very flat picture and make it into something that is much, much more aesthetically pleasing. And you could probably go in and, again, let's see what happens here. If you bring that down, darken that, and then go in and lighten this. There we go. Now you've really got something that stands out. But these are for you to fool with. I would not go out and get Photoshop. If you wanted to, you could get Lightroom. It's only $90. The best program that you can probably get for the money is called Elements. Elements, Photoshop Elements. It used to be about $100, and then sometimes they give it away free. Extraordinarily powerful, maybe too powerful. But I would actually go to Elements before I would go to Lightroom, and these programs are less than $100. Those are the really powerful editing programs. But what I've shown you tonight here on the side with these basic edits, you can do a tremendous amount to improve a photograph. Questions?
Nope, I think everybody's following along. So
all right, good. So let's go now into what I want to just bring out to you. I don't think there were too many other things I wanted to show you, techniques that aren't there. Good. I like this one here. That's all right. Let's stop fooling around. All right, let's stop the share. Okay, now, if you want to be able to go and make a book, I'm going to give you the names of these, and I can put them up on the screen, but I might as well just give you the names of them. These are the ones that most people have chosen. And the first one is called Mixbook, Mixbook. Mixbook, MPix, MPIX. And the two most often used now are Shutterfly and Snapfish. But there's quite a few of them. And I think that I will bring you to, let me just see if this one here works. I'm just shifting I'm shifting screens here. And no, I won't do that. And Snapfish. When you want to be able to make a book, you want to be able to go to a company that makes it as easy as possible. And with any of those, Shutterfly, Snapfish, MPix, Costco has a very good, also is very good. And I understand that even CVS is getting into it now. And what they allow you to do is you take the pictures that you want to put into an album. You load them up, they give you the page, they give you a tool, and all you have to do is drop the photographs onto the page. They take your pictures, they print it, they send it back to you, and usually you can get away with $35, $40 for a book. Your biggest decision is going to be the paper. What kind of paper do you want? Do you want glossy paper? Do you want matte paper? That's your own personal choice. It gets more expensive if you want a hardcover. If you can have a soft cover, which is usually fine to give to people, it's usually a lot less expensive. So I think that I have covered
So Ron,
yeah.
there is a question which I suspect is a whole other class or series of classes, and that's about if you have any tips for editing good video, making good video, and if people can use the tools that you've been showing us and apply them to video.
Excellent question. Very, very good question. Okay, photos, I can just tell you this. I don't know if I have a video handy. That was the problem. Nobody sent one in. Photos will edit a video very well. I didn't want to take a lot of time. I can probably do it right here on my cell phone, but I don't think we have time to bring it up. Let me just tell you this, photos will do it. The most important thing that you can understand, and this is the most amazing thing, it's changed the world, is every one of us has one of the most powerful video cameras, movie cameras that you can possibly have. The resolution of this thing here is as good or better than a $15,000 film movie camera. And that's why now everybody is carrying a movie camera. You can't do anything. It's transformed the justice system because everybody's got one of these things. And the quality, as you found yourself, is extraordinary. It's very, very good. You don't need a special editor to do your movie editing. What photos will do with a movie, and I wish I had one right here, but I don't think so, is it'll allow you to take one end of the movie, the other end of the movie, and get rid of what you don't want. In other words, if you've got a movie that's made up of 25 frames and you only want a certain section of them, it allows you to edit those out. Every edit that we did tonight with brightness and with sharpness can be done on a movie. So you don't need anything special for the movie. Use this or use almost any other editor. The editor that's in your camera right now, I could make a movie right now and show you. We'll do it. Like that. That's what I have to tell you that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron.
I think that's all of what I wanted to. And if you're
the other thing we could talk about, we touched about it a little earlier, but I wonder if you want to say a few things about archiving and how do you organize your files so that you can find photos, in 6 months or, 6 years.
Every editor that you have gives you the ability to search for your photos in many, many different ways. This one here allows you to search by years, by months.
Do you want to share your
By
screen
day.
again so we can see how you're doing it?
Yeah, I'm just clicking on it. This gives you them by days, all the photographs you took at one day. And then you can go in and search the photograph. And I don't know what happens if we try to search for flowers. Oh, I'm doing this. Okay, I got you. I got to go back onto the share screen. All right. And there, I'll show you how to do this. Okay. Let's see. We want all the photos. Okay. You've got 500 photos up there. You want to be able to go to a particular day or a date. One of the choices you have with this simple program is go by year. It'll give you all the pictures by the year. You can go to the pictures of October 2018. It'll show you those. And you can go to the months. Or what you can do is go up here and let's try flowers. There it is. It automatically knew where the flowers were and gave you all your pictures of flowers. If you want to go back, let's try people. There's people. If you want to try dogs, there it is, dogs. The programs are so sophisticated that it knows what a dog looks like. You want to get pictures of all your sunsets. You go up here and there's the sunsets. All right. Now, when you save a photograph very often, you can give it a title. And when you give the picture a title, the file a title, all you have to do is put in the title's names. In other words, if you've got one grandchild with a certain name, just plug the name in and it'll do it. I think this will actually learn that if there's one kid with a certain face and you give it a name, it'll pick out all those pictures with that same face. Dogs, it did it. I didn't know that. Places. I don't know. Oh, look at that. That's neat. It shows you where you took all the pictures all over the country. Now, when I said to you, everybody knows what you're doing, there's no way. Something somewhere out there knows every place you've been where you took a picture. All right. So if you were in Los Angeles or out wherever, in fact, if I zoomed in on this, it would probably come to the exact location where I was, whoever took this 5 years ago. It's there. It's somewhere out there. Every picture you have has a GPS mark on it somewhere that a computer can find. Can you get rid of it? I doubt it. That's all of the places. All right. Again, I'm not going to go do these because these are my own shared albums, but I share pictures with my daughter-in-law, and they're all in this one album here. And whenever she wants to, she posts the picture to there and I get to see it. And these are the shared albums. And the same thing with WhatsApp. They're all shared when you go to WhatsApp, but believe me, it's all up there. I can probably find out where the last WhatsApp picture that somebody I know took, exactly where they were.
One thing that I do, Ron, is I actually keep them in multiple places in the cloud so that, Flickr got bought out by some other people. So I've been using them for a long time because they let me archive full-size photographs to Flickr. Whereas if I upload to Google, they will let me do unlimited files, but I have to accept their compression algorithm. So I say, okay, that's fine. And it's good for sharing with people. And it's free, which is a great price. But since I can't archive everything full size, that doesn't work so well for my long-time storage. And then because I've got a Fire Stick plugged in one of the places where I hang out sometimes, one of the ways I love to see photos is as a slideshow If we're just hanging out reading or something, or we've left the TV on, but we're not watching anything on the TV, we can have it just do a slideshow of our images. And Amazon, you can upload your photos to them if you have an Amazon account.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, Amazon, unlimited, extraordinary. Amazon
Exactly.
will also print books. They're very, very good. I just did a Google search. My screen's up there right now.
It is. Yep, we can see your
I just did a Google search for free cloud storage.
Yeah.
And look what came up. There's a list of them right there. P-Cloud, 10, Google Drive, 15 gigabytes, free. Dropbox. I don't like Dropbox. Amazon. Oh, here's one. If you have Amazon Prime, it's unlimited.
Right.
If you have Amazon Prime, you should really look into what you can get with Amazon Prime that you may not be aware of. This here alone is worth the price of Amazon Prime. Unlimited storage of all your pictures. And they also have a very good printing service and an excellent bookmaking service.
And you can set them up.
Huh?
I was just going to say, and you can set them up on your phone so that it automatically, whenever you connect to Wi-Fi, will upload your photos, so that you don't need to worry about, if your phone crashes, you're out of memory, you've got your full size saved. And I do that to a couple different services just to make sure that if something happens, I always have access to my photos. And I stopped worrying about chasing down hard drives. I used to have hard drives that were full of photos.
Yeah.
And now I've just got a couple different accounts and I put them in a couple different clouds.
Your hard drive will go bad.
It will.
Whatever and what will certainly go bad is the drive in your computer eventually. You get it up in the cloud, and here's a list I just got here. Here's 12 free online storage services with how much that you get. And Apple iCloud only gives you 5 gigabytes is a lot, but it's very, very inexpensive. And if you're a student with Microsoft, you get a terabyte. That's the Library of Congress. And there's a whole bunch of them there. And then what's the best free cloud storage? Go through it. Google everything.
And Google Photos, Google Drive is the 15 gigabyte, but what I was saying is Google Photos, if you accept their compression, is also unlimited. I'm surprised they don't have it on there.
Those of you with Android phones get free Google Drive. Google Drive, incidentally, will also fit on your Apple phone, but you automatically have it, especially if you use their browser. Chrome. If you're using Chrome, and a lot of Apple people are using Chrome, you have the entire Google retinue of free programs at your disposal. Just be careful of what you post.
For sure.
Okay, any other?
People are not, so if people do have questions, they should put them in the chat. But we've also had a full night. I suspect people may just be, kind of enthralled watching you transform our photos and bring, take it from a snapshot to another level. That was really cool. I really enjoyed that myself. So.
And all the commands, all the brightness, luminance, all of these are in every program that you're going to use. And you should go out on your phone alone and just there's always an edit. Just go to the edit, crop, fool around with it, and see what you can control.
Great.
Good.
Well, thank you, Ron. This has been very illuminating. We've learned a lot in these 4 weeks. We've covered a lot of ground.
Fun.
And hopefully this helps everybody feel more confident when they're sharing their photos with folks, and that they can really take their pictures to another level. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Good.
Great. I see people applauding. So if we had a room, you'd be getting a standing ovation.
Yes.
It's great.
All right. I've enjoyed this myself. Great. Very good. I'm going to leave.
It is that time. Ron, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you again soon.
Well,
if people have any questions, I will put my email again.
Great. And then I can answer them, and then I'll continue to post stuff that you'll be able to put up perhaps on that board from the library. So if there's stuff people want, I'll get that to you.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you, Ron. Have a good night.